Hi everyone, I'm Zach from the Shaken Fist, and I'm so sorry. I didn't, I didn't want to have to make one of these videos. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. All jokes aside, I just wanted to make fun of inspiring sophistry a little bit because he said he cries. He had to cry a lot that he was wrong about something.
If God exists and wants me to be saved, and I need to accept that salvation in some capacity, then I need to first at least know that he exists.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there are atheists who really would believe in Jesus Christ and God if they could.
Would they? I mean, human psychology is so complex. When an atheist tells me, if you just gave me the evidence, I'd believe, I go, uh-huh. That's not how your brain works. That's not how we work as humans. This isn't the way it is. Flat earthers exist. We know from studying the brain that when your beliefs are attacked, even little beliefs, the lizard part of your brain lights up. Flight or flight response. We all want our worldviews, the beliefs we currently espouse to be true, because the lizard part of our brain lights up and we go, I don't want to be wrong on something. That's what I was telling myself when I took down my Exodus documentary and had to redo it. An hour-long documentary I uploaded. I was like, I cannot be given to my lizard brain. I know this is true about myself. I know I want it to be true, and I could easily make the evidence fit, but I know I got to do what's right. And that was hard. I mean, I literally cried. So, I mean, I know what it's like, but that's the way humans are.
I got down on my knees and wept.
And, I was wrong too. I was wrong twice, in fact. I don't go through some of the old books that I've read, like a year or two ago or whatever, as often as I should. And I've misremembered something. I don't think that it's going to alter my arguments too much. But the Meneptah Stele is around 1207, because I made the dumb mistake of, I heard 13th century, and then I remembered it was at '07, and then I merged the two because I'm an idiot. And it was 1207. It doesn't change much of what I say. But it will change what I say in future. Also, Josiah, whilst implementing reforms and finding the book of the law, did not, in fact, actually make Judah a vassal state. It was Hezekiah. You see, I mistook Hilkiah and Hezekiah, and I swapped them around. So I thought it was closer to what it was. So Josiah, whilst implementing monotheistic reforms, because he walked with God and found the book of the law and all that, he did not make Assyria a vassal state. And I think this one affects my arguments much less than the other one. But hey, I was wrong, so there you go. There's my mea culpa. I am sorry, and I will change my arguments in future. And hey, if I get something, I'm just a guy on YouTube. I don't have any degrees. You know what I mean? I've just read a bunch of books by people and listened to a bunch of lecture series on like great courses and stuff by people that have. And I'm not going to remember it 100% perfectly. And, c'est la vie. I apologize, and I'll try to do better in future. But hey, I am not perfect, and if I do something wrong, please feel free to let me know. It's fine. It's like, as long as you're not a dick about it. You know what I mean? Because, otherwise you'd be like one of those Christian people that come in and they don't have really anything to say against what you've said. And they just start saying mean things because they're like a 4-year-old bully. Oh, you smell. So, like, if I say something wrong, fucking let me know. I try to be happy to be corrected. It's hard, but, if I'm genuinely wrong, then I'm genuinely wrong. And I hope I can be man enough or person enough, human enough to admit that. And, so if you were appreciative of my apology and it's your first time here and you end up liking what you see, you like, subscribe, do the commenting, tell me what you think of this. If you have any reasonable arguments aside from you smell, or whatever, let me know. What do you think about what I'm about to talk about? I'd love to hear it, because I'd love to hear it. You know what I mean? Move on. So, the actual point of the video. It's 3 o'clock in the morning here. on Tuesday, the day before a video is supposed to be out. And once again, I have had some sudden inspiration that I have to just get something off my chest. So, I had a lovely stream with Dave from Captive Desks. But no, it's in the sky, because look up. It's like people look at that and they go, "Do you know what? Yeah, it is up, isn't it? It's totally, that's where it is." Because people aren't educated enough. Because, hey, science is boring, right? It's super boring. Everything about it is shit. That's why you got to pick on the people who like it in school. You got to pick on, and you got to look, he's a dweeb. Look, even people even when they get older, look at this awkward scientist knobhead. The whole, so much of everything in society is about telling you that smart people are dumb and science is bad. So then you can believe shit like this.
This one is really bad.
Yeah, it is.
Really, really bad. This one should get an award. This is really bad. There's land in the sky.
On Tuesday we just done it. It was on Monday. Because it's the same day where I am, but not where you are. It was a fun stream, and then I went over to Mr. Beverly's channel. It's always fun to go over and get involved in the chat and some differing channels and stuff like that, and especially Mr. Beverly's. He has interesting guests on, and they were talking about he wanted me to come on because I have a thought that some people don't like that atheists share burden of proof too, and that was supposed to be the main crux of the argument. And then he's speaking to a guy called JCO Journey. And, it was a fine, dandy conversation and all that. But, he's like, well, we'll talk about things of proof. And he started talking about answered prayer. God, I love answered prayer. Just reminds me of G-Man. 100% of my answers are answered. And all that, so... But the thing is I think Jesus completely refutes this, right? And I know a few videos ago I made an impassioned speech on the back of something I said on Joe's channel, The Kentucky Atheist. I don't want to talk to Christians. And you know what? I want to talk to this one because I want to know the answer, right? And you can notice they're trying to be a little nicer in this video. Not to inspiring philosophy, but that's for different reasons. But I'm going to try and be respectful. I'm trying to be nice. So, Mr. JCO Journey, whatever your name is, I can't remember because it's 3:00 in the morning, and I've been through my stream and Mr. Beverly's stream, and I'm all wired. I've had far too much coffee. So, I'd like you to come on and talk. So I've already sent him an email. I have given him no time to reply because I like to get a video out on Wednesday, and if I don't do it now, it's not going to get done. So. I cordially invite you to come and talk to me about such things. And I'm going to be super nice. I'm going to tell you exactly why I think what I think. So what we need to do is reach for one Bible. Right? And we're going to go to Matthew 6. So if I can be bothered, I'm going to put in some clips of how he's talking about, he had answered prayer because, he wanted to play PS4 a couple times or something, and he needed some money. Because, answered prayer is always best when you need things, isn't it? It's always a very selfish thing that has to happen, doesn't it?
God is a inference based on certain things like what you said, the moral argument, the design argument. But there's not concrete evidence. Inference is different from evidence. Would you agree, or would you say no? There's actually evidence, and then what would it be?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to the burden of proof idea. There's a difference between evidence and just evidence that you probably see sufficient enough. For example, if I say Bigfoot exists, and I took a picture of I go in the woods, I see a picture of a fuzzy man that I think is Bigfoot. I say, hey, this is my evidence that Bigfoot exists. Technically, that is evidence, but you probably won't see a sufficient evidence to convince you, or sufficient that it is Bigfoot. But technically, that's evidence in a sense. So when people say evidence, even for example, prayers is counted as evidence. If prayers being answered is counted as evidence, it's just some people don't see evidence as prayers as sufficient enough to convince them personally of what's it called, of God, for example, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
1 minute 37 seconds later.
So the prayer, and even the prayer example, I tell people I say prayer is way more complicated because I think it's For example, if I ask my parents for $20 and they give me $20, but 99 people ask for my parents for $5 and they don't give them $5, I'm not gonna sit here and say that it's not efficient. I just know from my experience that my parents give me $20. And that's why I say my parents give me $20 in a sense, or a prayer for that.
Right. Now, how do you answer this? Answer
Yep.
prayer is confirmation bias.
Yeah, so I speak all the time. So I do it multiple times. For example, I tell people the story. I tell people like I probably actually started praying for real, like what? Probably in college. I think probably around college area because I grew up in a church, one of those mega churches, and two different churches. A mega church that was like, I ain't gonna lie, God told you get the $65 million jet. He didn't tell me about the $65 million jet. But I say when I started praying, for example, I think I was like one of the first when I started, like I wrote this down. Like for PS4, for example, I think I said I played my PS4 multiple times. I left PS4 at my parents' house. I prayed about it while I was at college. 2 days later, we got robbed. The first time we got robbed. Or I tell people the story how like I prayed about what's that called? About South Florida. I needed like 3,500. I needed like a lot of money to go to South Florida. I had no money. I had $1,000. I said, God, what to do? Blah blah blah. I put my money into, I think it was like Shiba coin. Like the next day, Shiba coin started rising and stuff like that. I pray about something. I get a phone call. It's multiple instances like those. And people say, I have a few people say, well, you remember the prayers that work. And I said, look, if you can, like, I tell people all the time, it's probably like 2 or 3 prayers that it's like, I probably didn't get like a direct answer, but even that is kind of like, is somewhat weird. But most prayers I ever did got an answer for it. It's like, I can't, for me personally, I can't sit here and say that multiple times. If this happened multiple times, I can't say multiple coincidences at this point.
Well, okay.
So I'm just going to read the Catholic one because the only other one I've got, and I've not set up my screen properly because it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I just wanted to get this out there. So I'm going to read my Catholic one because it's in plainer language. I usually like to use the New Standard Revised Updated Edition, but today this isn't what I'm using. So we're talking about the Sermon on the Mount. In the Sermon on the Mount, some of like the most important Jesus sayings, you know, the blessed are the things, and doesn't it have the I am sayings? And you know, you're supposed to really, you know, love the Sermon on the Mount. It's like Jesus's big thing, you know. It's one of like, come on. So we'll start Matthew. I'm gonna read the entirety of Matthew 6. We'll just count this as like a little Religion Unraveled, right? So Matthew 6, and I'm going to read it all. Matthew 6. Beware of practicing your piety before men in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Kind of seems like saying that God is answering your prayers is practicing your piety before men in order to be seen by them, because you are saying that you are special and God is answering you specifically. Thus, when you give alms, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be praised by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward. But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your alms may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. See, what matters here is that you're doing it in secret. Almost like it's a running theme. And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners so they may be seen by men. You are announcing your standard of prayer and what you pray about and what you ask the Lord about in front of men. You are like the hypocrites who love to stand and pray at the street corners, YouTube, so they can be seen by men. You see, you're using, because he asked you for proof, and you're using your prayer as proof of your piety. But when you pray, so they may be seen by men. Truly I say to you, they will have their reward, you know, on earth and not in heaven. But when you pray, go into your room, shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. You know, because it's in secret. You see, secret from your lips to his ears, right? And in praying, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will not be heard for the many words. Do not be like them, For your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Do not be like them. You do not need to announce to the Lord what you wish and what you want, for if the Lord is there and real, you will trust in his understanding and not yours, and you should know that the Lord is going to provide what he should provide, even though he doesn't unless he does, because it's all prosperity gospel when it's something for you, like a PS4 or whatever, because you prayed and you got it because of the faith in the Lord, but prosperity gospel's bad when it's Kenneth Copeland asking for a plane or a Rolex, right? I'm assuming. Pray then like this. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this our daily bread, and forgive our debts, and also we have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For if you forgive, and then it stops, for if you forgive men in their trespasses, and your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men in their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth with God, isn't it? You get what you ask for. You ask for earthly rewards. You get earthly rewards, that they may be praised by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward. Stuff like that. So when you fast, do not look dismal, like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, that they are fasting, so they may be seen by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by men, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father your Father who sees in secret will reward you. You see, again, do not do the righteous thing in front of everyone else. So do not point out how you asked for things in prayer, right? And use that as a version of your piety, because what you do with the Lord is secret, because everybody else doesn't need about it. And that's what Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will be your heart also. The Lord has told you a way to pray. You should pray to the Lord in one way, because he is all-knowing and knows all the things. Because, what was it he says? Because do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him, right? So you don't need to ask for it. You do the prayer that you've been prescribed, right? So answered prayer isn't proof, because God isn't going to give you answered prayer like that, because all that does is give you earthly rewards. You got a thing on earth, and it doesn't prove that God's real. It just proves that you got a thing on earth, that they may be praised by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward. So they may be seen by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward. And because you're praying to God and you're asking for stuff, right? And you're not doing what God said. So your heart isn't with God. It's with your items, right? And if your heart's with your items, I just don't get how answered prayer is supposed to prove that God exists, because you're not supposed to ask for it. So you're using proof of God doing things that he said he wasn't going to do and are bad as proof that he exists. Except for that science can't test for God, but praying is proof, though. That's a test that's acceptable, right? I wonder if we could cut a bull in half and then burn him. I wonder if that's an acceptable test, because it's okay for the Bible. Because it's okay for the Bible. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is sound, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is not sound, your whole body will be full of darkness. And then the light in the light in you is darkness. How great is the darkness? It's that, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and it leads to the dark side, or whatever it is. The divine spark will be consumed. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and Mammon. Because basically, you're either serving greed or you're serving the Lord. So if you're praying to the Lord for greedy things, No, it just kind of, it's just, it just seems to really say, hey, you shouldn't be doing this anyway. But, all right, let me just finish, and I can finish up the crux of my point. Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about losing your life. What shall you eat, and what shall you drink? Nor about your body, what shall you put upon it? Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add 1 cubit to the span of a life? Why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But God, who so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O men of little faith? Therefore do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? What shall we wear? For the Gentiles seek all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these shall be yours as well. Therefore do not be anxious about it tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious about it itself. Let the day's own trouble be sufficient for the day. So later on in the conversation, it even gets brought up about, well, hey, what if they're praying for food and stuff? You know, you need food. God, please give me some. That says the Lord knows what he needs to provide you with. And you don't need to ask him.
Suppose your prayers aren't answered. What do you say? Well, it's God's will. Thy will be done. Fine, but if it's God's will and he's going to do what he wants to anyway, why the fuck bother praying in the first place? Seems like a big waste of time to me.
Now, how do you answer this? Answer prayer is confirmation bias.
I say, fine, pray for anything you want. Pray for anything. But what about the divine plan? Gave it a lot of thought, decided it was a good plan, put it into practice. And for billions and billions of years, the divine plan has been doing just fine. Now you come along and pray for something. Well, suppose the thing you want isn't in God's divine plan. What do you want him to do? Change his plan? What's the use of being God if every rundown schmuck with a $2 prayer book can come along and fuck up your plan?
That's what Gentiles do. But I suppose Paul said the Gentiles were okay, right? Like, it's like saying, all right, I can prove that my God exists because I'm breaking his rules and he's angry at me. And it's like, okay, well, how do you know? Because you don't even seem to know that this is a bad thing to do. Like, come on. But I'd love to talk to you about it. And I really want to, because I want to know, I'd love to know from any Christian, really, how that works together. Because to me, don't know, it kind of seems all like answered prayer isn't proof. Because you're using your confirmation bias to say that these things happened because the Lord said he's not going to do it. Like, come on. He keeps on saying the only reward you're going to get if you do these sorts of things is the adoration of other men. Their adoration for you and their adoration for your piety is the only thing you're going to get. Because you ain't getting any of those things. It seems pretty plain to me that answered prayer isn't proof, and it's just confirmation bias. Because did the Lord turn up and in person go, here you go, here's the thing you wanted, here's your PS4, right? Here's your money. Or did it come to you somehow by people? And then you've attributed that to the Lord. Because what the Lord moves in mysterious ways, and the Holy Spirit moves through people, right? Like, Matthew 6 says very explicitly, one prayer to say, and that's all you should do. Anything else is not what the Lord wants. So he's not going to fulfill it. And if the Lord says, Like, if we're supposed to take your book seriously about, like, you know, the flood is kind of real and Adam and Eve and, you know, all the claims of the Jesus and the rising from the dead, then why doesn't that chapter matter when it comes to stuff like this? Is it because it makes you feel warm and comfortable at night? That, Jesus answered another one of my prayers, so he loves me. So we'll ignore the bits of the Sermon on the Mount that say, nah, that's not the case. I know it's the Sermon on the Mount, and it's supposed to be like the best Jesus, peak Jesus. But that doesn't comport with what I want and what I want to believe. So what Jesus says doesn't matter. Aren't Christians fun? Now, you know, it's early in the morning, and in an actual conversation, I would attempt to be nicer. I'm not the nicest person, but, you know, I would love to have a conversation about this. So please, come and talk to me. And, you know, if you like this video, like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things, and goodbye, everybody!